way to start this.
I'm
Now
starting
ready.
recording now.
Now I'm
Nope.
100%
This is how the
ready.
podcast is starting. We're going right into it out of this.
No one wants to hear this. Nobody
Yep.
wants to hear this.
Yep. We're doing
All
it.
right, Dylan, you're starting
In 5, 4, 3.
Where's the intro music? I expect.
Calm
intro
your
music.
shit. It's coming.
Oh, there you go.
We can't start with calm your shit.
Watch us.
Dylan, that was the beat drop. That was your cue.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Should we just restart?
No, we're
calm
going.
your shit
Welcome
first.
everybody to If I May.
All right.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. I'll start. Yeah. Welcome everybody to If I May, a podcast with me, Dylan, an average guy, along with 3 of my average friends, Brent, Kyle, and Nick. We're going to talk about stuff while interrupting each other as politely as possible. This is episode 39. Let's go.
There you go, Dylan.
Hey, I
First
did
intro. So
If
congrat-
I may, I am
An
no
average guy
longer.
intro.
What's
If I
that?
may, I might not be the worst person at reading
Tele-
teleprompter.
Hey, you know what?
I'm back,
Hey,
It
baby.
was also his
Someone's
very
gotta
first
be-
time.
Number
Yeah, all right.
3. I'm the third worst.
yeah, so
That means
I'm
you haven't
moving up
changed
in the
rank.
world.
yeah, rank is still the same. Have not moved up or
Moved
down.
up. There's just someone else below you, if that makes sense.
That's had one
I'll
try.
take it. I'll get
Oh,
better.
No, I'm not worried
I,
about
I
you.
have faith.
Yeah, so for those that don't remember, this is Dylan. We actually had him as a guest in episode 20 something, or maybe the teens. I don't know. So,
If
he's in
I
the
were-
army.
There's the teens.
If
There's
I
like
paid
16.
attention, I would know which episode it was, but I don't.
Yeah, it's
14?
okay. Yeah, something like
This
that.
is my kind of podcaster, someone who doesn't pay attention, doesn't take notes, shows up, and
Kyle,
shows
be
out.
careful. Kyle, we're running out. We're no longer the majority anymore.
yeah,
It used
right.
to be 66% people that listen to the podcast, and now it's only 50%. So
All right. Well, I'm prepared in other subjects, so maybe it's not that. But I actually printed off stuff for this one, so I'm good to
Printed
go.
things off
I printed things off for me to read
with paper.
Somebody needs
with
dual
paper
screen action
and
in their
ink.
life.
Not
They
colored
need
ink,
dual
just black
screen
and white.
action.
Just black and white.
Uh,
Yeah. So
if I may, quick, that's more preparation than Nick has ever done for this, I think. So congratulations, Dylan.
Thank
You're-
you. Does
you're
that make me
now
up to 3
third.
now? Hell yeah! I'll take it.
Nick, you actually moved down.
Ah, and I don't seem to care.
Nope. That was never in question.
I think I'm the one who sounds educated. Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's true. That's what my.
Even
That's what
without
Norman
all my
said.
fancy lack of notes.
Mm.
Yeah. So
right,
Dylan's
I'll
joining
say
us. He'll theoretically be here to stay, assuming he enjoys his time, I guess. Something like
Or
that.
doesn't bomb the tryout.
Yeah, or doesn't bomb this tryout.
Well, I'm not off to a good start, so.
No, you're good. You're good.
So you
All
got
right.
better than most.
Let's jump into one of our topics. That's usually so. Dylan and I actually started talking about this, and I was like, we need to stop. Like, this is a perfect podcastable topic. So I think last week, or the end of last week, some woman in it was one of the Carolinas, north or south. I don't probably this. We'll go with South Carolina because it sounds more southern. Won the like Mega Millions jackpot, which I think the overtime payout was 1 point something billion. So she just took the instant payout, and it was like 800 some million. And so
Smart.
I was like, yeah. So for those that don't know, like theoretically, the Insta money is the way you want to go because you can instantly invest that and make a lot more money than you would by getting the payout over however many years they always tell that the payout is. But-
Is that if I may?
Yeah.
Is that depending on like the quantity of money that like is there a certain percentage of money that you win that it's worth taking the money right away or whether it's worth actually getting it over time? Like if you say you win the lottery but it's not really like a crazy amount of money, would it be more worth actually getting over a series like
So it depends on how
amount of
much.
time?
So like the instant payout
That's
is
what
a
I'm
certain
saying.
amount, and then the overtime's a certain amount. So theoretically, the stock market, on average, you can make around 10% a year on the stock market if you have people that know what they're doing. So
Right.
it depends on what percentage, how much smaller the instant payout is from the over years payout. If after 10% cumulative each year for 3 years, it pays out more than you would get after the 5 or 10 years that it pays you out over time. If that made any sense.
That makes total sense. It makes because it makes you actually make more money in the long run to take as much money as you could from the lottery and reinvest it right then. Whereas if you're basically waiting for your money over time, you're not able to reinvest that, and you're basically just dealing with what you have at that time.
Yeah, you get
Does
like
that make sense?
yeah, 100 grand a year or something like that versus 800 million that you can instantly invest and
Yeah, you could
increase
have
it by
invested
10% right
earlier.
away. That's 80 extra million a year. You know, if you're
Yeah.
making even less than, if you make 5% off the stock market, that's 40 million a year. I think I could live off of that. Like, I
I think
don't know.
so.
I don't know. Maybe not.
If I may, won't taxes each year go up as well?
Yeah, you're right. Like a third of that's
taxes
gone.
right now are, if you pay for it right away, it's gonna be hopefully the lowest.
Okay, we'll
it's
call
not
it
gonna
even
increase.
half of it being gone. That still
Yeah.
leaves me with, at 5% a year, 10 million a year. I think I could handle that.
Could
I don't
you?
know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that enough?
My bills are pretty steep.
So I guess the general question is, if you guys right now had a influx of, we'll call it $1 billion or even $500 million, what do you do? Like all of a sudden $500 million just drops into your bank account. What do you do with it?
I report it to make sure that it goes back to the rightful owners.
Okay, okay, you win the lottery and you get $500 million in your bank account after taxes.
I question where I bought that lottery ticket from because I don't okay, I'm just kidding. I would probably, if I were to do that, I would find a way to invest or like put away enough where I don't ever have to worry about money again.
Well, and your
then I
children and
would-
your children's children, right?
Yeah, most likely. And then I would find ways to use it, whether it's going on trips or donating to charity or, you know, make the most of it. I don't think I'd buy anything super lavish because you can make your money go farther if you're not buying yachts all the time. So,
I think
Yeah.
everyone says that though.
yeah, that's
I
true.
wouldn't do that like much crazy, and then all of a sudden you have all this money, and you're like, spend it.
Yeah,
Go
screw it.
cray-cray.
Yeah, a couple $100,000 for this awesome car. Why not?
Right?
I'm paying off those loans though.
Chump change.
Oh yeah,
All
for sure.
day.
Like number one, like all loans are instantly paid off. I think like first of all, you don't like for me personally, you tell no one, at least not initially, right? And like you get yourself a lawyer or somebody that knows what they're doing with that much money, that you somehow can trust. I don't know, Nick, you want to be in charge of my money? Like you
Nick's
find
not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I could give you points and tips, but I'm exempting myself from this discussion because I have a family history in this topic area, whether you knew that or not.
Ooh.
Oh, well, Nick,
No, that's
if it ever
definitely
happens to
fair.
me, I will pay you 10 grand to come out here and tell me what to do.
Yeah, I mean, if
Brand.
you want to ask broad questions, I can seriously give you fair answers, but it's because I have a family member who did, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
It always works out differently for everybody. I feel like
You'd
winning the
only pay
lottery
them-
doesn't necessarily make you happier, but I'd be willing to try it, I guess.
Here's what I can say. Like hypothetic, not that I'm not going to tell you any details about my family member because that doesn't matter.
What? Why
But,
not? Just kidding.
because it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
But the thing I've thought about, like if I were to have won it, or if I were to come into that kind of money, what would I do with it? Yes, being an accounting individual, I would most certainly want to put away the large, easy majority of it, 90+%. And just live off of the interest kind of thing. Like not all the interest because there should be more than enough to live off of. But as far as what I would spend on,
Yeah, what
Toy
would be
for
your
myself.
splurging items?
would be like at most, I think I want an F-150. I've kind of always wanted like a really nice truck.
Mm.
As kind of a redneck at heart, it's something I really enjoy having, especially in the UP. I think I'd buy a large piece of property
Yes, me
in the
too.
Upper Peninsula as well, and invest in that for my family to hunt on and vacation on if they should so see fit.
Also, an entire island in the Bahamas.
I like the concept, but I would have to understand how much money or what my investment would be. I'm not in love with the someplace I don't want to be. All of my family and all of my friends are in the Midwest, or part of the Midwest, because neither of you are in the Midwest any longer. But
Aw.
Yeah, we're not friends anymore, apparently.
it's relevant in the sense that you guys are going to return to the Midwest, at least for vacations or whatever. You are part of the Midwest, so I'd rather be here. Yes, if I had an island, it would be lovely, and people would have to come see me or would want to, and that would all be great. But it's just like, okay, if I were to buy, if I had no spending limit, or won, $500 million, I would buy probably a couple hundred acres in the Upper Peninsula near my family's hunting land. I would buy a really nice truck. But I'd probably stay where I'm at. Like, honestly, I wouldn't, other than the nice truck, I really wouldn't want to do anything too lavish. I have plans for my house and things I want to upgrade, but I'm not going to go crazy. Like, I'll slowly continue to upgrade my house the way I planned to even before I came into any money. The other thing that I'd like to do, is the people who are closest to me, and this is a dangerous game, but I'd say I've put some thought into it. I would pay off all student loans of friends that I had. If I were to make a short list of very close friends and or family members, I would pay off all existing student loans. I would not cover family members who wanted to go to college or do anything crazy. Once they graduated college, I would consider it. And maybe I'd help out with, putting out a loan or something like that. But I think my family member who came into some money via this method has done a really good job in being pretty hands off, and seeing how she has done it. I would recommend a mostly hands-off approach. They wouldn't do the paying for student loans, but it was just more of a hypothetical, like, if you could do something for the people who meant the most to you, what's hindering their lives most, or what would be most significant to them. Most often it's taking care of student loans. So
Yeah, if I may, I really like that point. I've been reading a lot of interviews about people that have, or listened to a lot of podcasts too, of people that have been really successful with their money. And what they always say is, like, you don't just give the people near you money just for the sake of it. Like, if someone comes to them or they have a family member that wants to do something to help better their, like, to help improve themselves, like the whole teach a person to fish kind of thing, like pay off student loans, you're helping them learn to fish, not just giving them the fish,
If I may, Nick, if you won that much money, why would you just get an F-150 when you could get an F-350?
What's an F-350?
An F-350 is just a very high-powered. It's a stronger version of the same truck. It can tow a hell of a lot more. That, in my mind,
I'm just saying, why would you not get a bigger truck?
A custom
and
truck.
That's a good question. Or you could get like the Ford Raptor or whatever the crazy trucks are. Quite simply, it's not my thing. Like, I want excessive to an extent, but I could draw the line at F-150. Now, you're right. If I want to buy a boat, or I want to be hauling something, and if I need a larger truck and it's practical, absolutely. I would have no problem upgrading to an F-250, F-350, whatever was necessary to accomplish whatever I was attempting to do. But there's nothing I can think of in my life currently. F-150 wouldn't be more than enough to do. You're right. There's probably not a great explanation for not going a 350, but it just seems excessive to me. Like, that's kind of where I have the mental line of, okay, yeah, I could do some crazy larger truck with crazy power or whatever, but it just doesn't appeal to me. I think whether it's the marketing or whatever. Now the other thing, I've been looking at cars, not because I'm going to buy one or do anything in the near future at all. I have another 10, 11 months worth of my lease, and then I'm buying out my Honda Accord after that period of time. But for my own research purposes, I've been looking at vehicles just because I enjoy doing it, and I want to start to look for future purposes. And badly to be a loyal Ford person, but Ford prices are high. Like, not sure if you guys have ever looked at this or what research you've done into cars, but like this Honda Accord that I'm leasing currently, and I'm going to buy out was a nice car, a very nice car, and very similar to a model Honda had. However, the model Honda had was 10 grand higher. On no account any better at all. Like it upset me that Ford is charging 10K more for nothing of value. Like I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's basically
And
the same class of car, just
of car, same features or less. And I'm sitting here wondering, okay,
hey, it's American. It's American.
Why would anyone pay this additional amount? And it's just like, oh, because we're Ford. Like, no, that's not how the market works. Like, I love Ford because they're the company that didn't need the bailout. They're the company that survived and everything. You know, represents America. Like, I've grown up watching commercials, and of course, there's the Chevy ones like a rock. There's Ford Strong, or there's Dodge that's also got a good brand. But I'm sitting here like, okay, as a consumer who's seriously just looking at these things, and I like to look at trucks. It's my dirty pleasure, but I don't think it'll make sense for my life, but I still like to look at it and understand. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I want to support Ford. I would, if right, it's my dream car if cars were that important to me, and they're not. But it's something I enjoy learning about, thinking about, and I would enjoy driving certainly. But what are your guys' thoughts on this whole idea that a company is just seemingly whatsoever charging an additional 5-10K when the market is offering and Ford's losing market space? Like,
well, there's your answer.
Elaborate on
they're
that.
losing.
That happens
they're losing
all
market
the time,
space.
though. But think about this though: brand loyalty, brand Apple. No, none of Apple's products. I don't think a single one of Apple's products are worth the price that you pay for them. But you you buy it because
Apple's
loyalty.
ridiculous. Like the memory costs is just stupid. It's just stupid. Is the best. Like, here's 32 gigs for an extra $100. I can go to the store right now, get a 512 gigabyte micro SD card for like $20-$30. It's just stupid pricing on Apple. Like the price per gig that you end up paying for. Yeah, the brand loyalty is stupid, and I think the whole losing market share is proof of overpricing without real innovation doesn't work.
They innovate, but it's probably just not.
What was the last big Apple innovation?
Oh, Big Apple? Oh, Apple doesn't innovate.
It was
face recognition.
It was Tim Cook when Tim Cook was still there. Or not Tim Cook.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Tim Cook's the CEO. Sorry, I've been reading about him with Trump. It's been hilarious. But that's a separate subject. But okay, I'm not looking to invest. I don't have the kind of money. Okay, I'm not going to spend my money on investing currently in that manner. But if I'm an investor and I'm watching a Ford lose market share for no apparent reason, what's the game plan? What
You can't think stupid.
The only reason it's really frustrating for me is because I worked for a company I joined briefly a company that I idolized growing up. They sold things that were
outdoorsy woodsman stuff.
It was an outdoorsy woodsman store kind of place, and I had always really enjoyed going in those stores because it was everything that I loved about outdoors. You know, without saying the store, you know, hunting, fishing, shooting, you know,
camping.
Equipment for outdoors, camping, all that kind of stuff. I had the opportunity to go work for one of them, unfortunately, right before they went bankrupt. And it was a really bad situation for me because they weren't publicly traded. Before I was hired, financials, which as a finance and accounting professional, I absolutely do look at that before I join an organization if I can. Given that they weren't publicly traded and nobody said anything, I walked into a really crappy situation. And the explanation I got over the 4 or 5 months I worked for them, I was introduced to all kinds of people who had been with the organization for 10, 15 years. And I was learning how they do things. And I'm looking at these finance and accounting professionals who are very smart people, very capable. And I simply, you know, asked some questions like, okay, you're telling me our forecasting model works like this and our analysis works like this. If this all works wonderfully, how did we get in the situation we're in? And their response to me was basically, yeah, no, you're not joking. This is the stupidest thing ever. We presented all this information to a CEO who simply said, "We will not give on margin." School approach. It is an old business approach. Before the Amazons of the world, before the other innovations of the world in so many areas, the prevailing business approach was no. It's if you give on margin, it's only a short-term boost.
Have you guys not seen Christopher Robin? Watch Christopher Robin. You got to flip the pyramid upside down, sell to the masses at a lower price, and you make all the money, and you can keep all your employees. That's what Christopher Robin taught me.
I've not seen that, but that actually does sound relevant.
They totally say that there.
I watched an iconic brand essentially go under, and they're rebuilding, and I hope they make it. But I look at a Ford that I idolized. They were involved with the college that I went to school at, and they're very supportive of education, and they've done a lot of great things, and they're an American brand by all means.
You gotta flip that pyramid upside down, sell the little man.
That's
how they started.
Understand.
That's how Ford started with the whole like any color you want, only black, blah blah blah. Like they started by selling to the small man. I don't know.
The full history of that with respect to America.
If I may, for this market share thing, because I decided to do some research with this, the top market share is General Motors at 17.1%. Ford has 15.2%, or it's basically only 2% off the top market share. I don't know if their collapse is quite
Was
as
that
imminent.
historically?
It's been higher historically. It's been upwards of 20%.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's dropped. But in comparison to, like, there's more options. Like, they're still doing pretty good.
There are more options
if they continue to slide,
because the market demands it.
Yeah.
Well, I think nowadays they're having a lot more of the like individual car companies as well, like a Tesla and like some of the other. There's some smaller car companies. They're actually having some okay success. So I mean, maybe that's just the whole market changing a little bit nowadays.
So I actually have a friend that works at Ford. Maybe we could have him on. I don't know. I could see if he's interested.
I don't want to.
You don't want to go down the rabbit hole?
I want to go down the rabbit hole, but you're asking an employee to speak about their company frankly. And if there's anything negative discussed about it, they often do not have permission to represent their organization. I love the thought, but it's
but he, as an engineer, he could give insight into.
No, he could get fired.
He could give insight into if there's any innovations coming up. Like I know.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where he's not probably allowed to talk about new innovations coming up.
I'm just saying,
I have 30 contacts at Ford I could call. Like,
yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Big swinging D over here.
I don't want to.
D for Detroit, baby.
Speculate. I don't want to speculate on if Ford's doing good or bad based off of what is just really limited information at this point. Like I honestly, a lot of things I've heard too about like the car industry, for example, is if they're gonna update something, when you release new technology, when new stuff, it's a very, very slow process because if you go to a car show, you go to all these new car shows, and there's technology that just blows you away. There's things that like the future, you're like, wow, why don't we just put this on the market right now? But a lot of that stuff just gets phased in. I mean, think about some of those cars that you can do like the auto merge or it's coming out really quick, or they can tell if there's they'll slow you down if you're coming too close to a car. Like the technology comes, but it's just way behind when it's actually developed because frankly the general population isn't quite ready for as vast a move up as
I don't think they can afford it.
Things like Ford have.
Thank you. Dylan's on the right track.
General population can't afford cars like that innovative.
They're close, Brent, but it comes back to the money. They're not going to give it to you for cheap. When I was researching trucks and I did a test drive, it was really interesting again on Ford. And sorry, this wasn't a planned topic. I just create these things as I go, for the record. But I did a test drive in an F-150 because I'm a fanboy, and they were telling me about the engines. And their marketing was hilarious to me. They're just like, okay, well, the standard F-150 comes with a V8. However, we can absolutely, upgrade you to the EcoBoost V6, this, that, the other damn thing. And they were basically saying, okay, yeah, the V6 engine, it's stronger, It's more efficient on gas. It is the better engine by far, like not even close. But the V8 standard. So they were making everyone pay more for the better, which is fine. But you have to think about all those lovely features you're talking about, Brent, all the futuristic technology. Those are all available right now. It's not that the general population isn't ready for it. It's that Ford and other companies, and maybe rightfully so, are putting it in new models. How many people do you know buy brand new cars regularly? Many. I mean, without
Sometimes,
judging
if
either
I
of
may,
our
sometimes
families
it
or
actually
parents.
does make sense if you are financially able to. A lot of times, the cars that offer you the 12 or 24 months of interest-free financing is actually can be cheaper long term than a used car. But
Yeah.
anyhow, Dylan, one thing I want to hit back, Dylan, quick. If you had a magical $500 million show up, I guess we'll circle back real quick. What would you do with
That's real
$500 million?
back.
Yep, that's pretty far back. It's like 25 minutes back ish. But
Okay. Well, first thing I would do if I just came into a bunch of money, it would probably be get out of the military. Now, that's most people. If they came into money, most people would or not. I mean, some people would keep their jobs, but I would not. I would want to travel. So, but as a military member, there is a rule or a regulation where you can get honorably discharged from the military for coming into money. So I
yeah,
think
that
that's
makes
kind of cool
sense.
that they allow that. Yeah, I mean, they don't want to keep people tied down, I guess, that don't need to be in the military,
Or if they
but
don't want to be there, like if you don't want to
yeah,
be there, that kind of doesn't help the military as much.
right. I mean, if you just, yeah, I would definitely get out of the military and I'd want to travel. But obviously, I'd want to build a nice home somewhere, pay off all like any debts that I have, which, I think I'd want to help out family members if they needed it. And I've always like had a dream of living in Alaska and the Caribbean, and basically spending the summers up in Alaska and the winters down in the Caribbean, and just kind of traveling back and forth. But I would want to buy land in both places, and I would want something small. I wouldn't want anything like huge, and I think I would
Hard to do
probably.
small in Alaska, though.
What's that?
Kind of hard to do anything small in Alaska, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. But then I think I'd want to get my private pilot's license, and I'd want to fly from one place to the other. I think that'd be really cool. And that's kind of what I would do, is travel and fly and kind of do my own thing and be a wilderness man, I guess.
I
Set up
like
my
that.
kids
I
for the
like that
future.
general plan. I think yeah, for me, like number one for me, if I come into like that substantial amount of money, half it I'm putting away, so I am not allowed to touch it. Like somehow it's automatically willed to my kids slash grandkids or something, where like a
Hmm.
huge chunk of the money, like I literally cannot touch without like five people agreeing or something like that. You know, something crazy like that, where just a bunch of the money I'm not even allowed to touch. It just goes in some trust fund for.
And you could go even further and set that up to where they cannot touch that, to your kids or your grandchildren cannot touch that money until they graduate
Until they're
college or something
21.
like
Yeah,
that.
oh yeah, that's a good one. Can't touch the money until you graduate
I think that would
college.
be really interesting.
That's a
Yeah.
great plan. That
That
would be a
would
good thing
totally
for
force
like,
them or like help them
yeah, that'd
drive
be,
them towards graduating college.
or I guess I don't know if I'd have that as a complete ultimatum because college isn't necessarily for everybody, but
Right.
at least I don't know, maybe a certain age or college kind of thing. That way,
Yeah,
at
college
about
or
this,
30.
yeah, the about same amount of life experience, equals getting that amount of money. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a good way of setting that up to where the kids wouldn't just kind of become
Brats.
uh yeah, I didn't really know how to like word that, but like yeah, to where they would just not I
If
don't
you
know,
can not tell them about the money,
Yeah, you're
that's
right.
probably
Yep, that's the way to go. It
that would be
magically
interesting.
appears. They
Could
they
keep
have the
them
person in the suitcase show up at their
thinking-
front door. Sir, we need to sit down with you and discuss something. You got a bunch
Yeah.
of money.
I don't know.
think that would be the easiest way to ensure that they don't turn out like a pile of crap.
Yeah. But I wouldn't like with that lifestyle of mine, like just kind of living in both Alaska and down in the Caribbean. I don't know if I would need a car. I probably wouldn't drive anymore. If I did, I would probably just take an Uber or something.
Yeah, that's a good
like-
point. You can just Uber wherever you want.
Yeah, I just wouldn't need to drive anymore, and I don't know, just buy whatever I want, I guess. But I wouldn't need anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like,
So I would want to save most of that money for my future generation.
I guess for me, the two things I'll throw in before we officially move on to something else or move off this topic completely is like number one, I don't know if you guys, I forgot what the movie's called, but it's like some police officer in New York City didn't have enough money to cover his tab, so he like said to this one woman like, "Hey, I'll split all my winnings with you from this lottery ticket," and then she's like, "Okay, sure, whatever," and he ended up actually winning it, and he actually did split it with him, and they just like went around doing like good tasks for people. Like I don't know if I'd want to just like donate a bunch of money to like a food bank or something. Like I'm sure some money would be good to do that, but I think the majority would be awesome just to like go around. I don't know how you do it safely per se, but with
Yeah,
like
the
$100 bills
calls.
and just give them, like maybe it's while you're driving only, right? That way you don't just walk around because then you're fairly vulnerable. But like the people that if they're standing on the side of the road, just here's $100 bill, here's 100, like just do that kind of stuff would be awesome. Or like pay for every like in McDonald's, be like for the next hour I just pay like here's $2,000, pay for everybody's meal for the next until that runs out. That kind of thing.
As you were saying that, I was totally picturing. What's the movie with the four magicians and in one scene they're just dumping bags of money like off a building? Do you know
Oh,
what?
Now you see me,
yeah.
now you
Now you
don't.
Now,
see me.
yeah, now you see me. That's like absolutely what I was picturing when you said just like handing out $100 bills. I was just like picturing you standing on top of a building, just like dumping a bag of money, just causing mass panic, like
that could be
car
hilarious.
accidents, and people
That
running
would be
around.
great. So you start a podcast just saying like this podcast is I have a ton of money. We have this much money to spend a month on cool shit, and then have everybody on the internet decide what you spend that money on each month. So it could be crazy
Or make
stuff
it a
like
game
that.
show.
I don't
where
know
you
if I want
could,
to do a
like,
game show.
release
Like maybe that would
clues.
be 1 month, but I don't think I'd want to run a game show full time. I mean,
Well, it wouldn't be like a game show. It would be like a search and find where like you just post maybe on like Twitter, just like a clue as to where you hid a stash of money somewhere.
it's like,
And people would go out in the world searching based off of your clue, trying to find where you kept this stash of money.
you just show a rock with like a peanut butter jar underneath it with like just a wad of bills in it. It's like
I don't know,
and
but
then you have
what I'm picturing is like from Ready Player One, where they have the Gunters. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking, Colin. You have your Gunters or whatever, the people that are trying
egg
to
hunters.
find.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, like trying to like really do the research into finding these treasures or whatever you leave.
And you have a joust game that they have to beat some. Sorry.
No,
If I may, the one comment you made regarding being careful and how many people are going to ask for money, one of the things I don't mind sharing, the number of phone calls when you get into that kind of position you're going to get are going to be astronomical, and this is from a generation that doesn't have their information posted on Twitter, Facebook, and everything else. If that kind of information is available, if you have a LinkedIn account, if you have a this account or that account, the number of organizations and individuals who will come out of the goddamn woodwork to ask for money and help and support are crazy, especially if it's a big winning.
And actually, the
like we're kinda
woman
talking
from
about.
South Carolina or whatever, she actually because of the laws, she's not required to release her name, so she didn't, which is obviously the way you need to go. But yeah, that's a good point,
staying
Nick. Like
anonymous.
you're right. Day one is change
Get
all
off
my
the grid.
passwords to everything.
I don't know if I'd
Get
have
off
a
the
phone.
entirely.
I don't know if
And
I would
then
have a phone.
that's a good question though. Like there are a lot of things and a lot of great charities that deserve your support, and it would make a world of difference too. But my personal take on it, if I can get up on my pedestal about community service, and I am not a great member as far as community service is concerned, frankly, but I will share my 2 cents regardless. And the federal government are needed, of course, for our country and everything else around that. But as much as everyone gets so PO'd about politicians and so upset about every big thing or every every major thing that should happen. I've always been kind of a fan of the idea of being the change you want to see in your community. Again, I feel like I'm getting up on my pedestal, but I'm sitting here like, if you don't like how dirty everything is, if you don't like how your city is being run, I like the idea at one point, especially the sides of the highways are absolutely disgusting. There are some park areas in St. Paul when I was living in there, and it's like if I were really invested in St. Paul, which I wasn't, that I'm not. What I think would be the best thing to do, instead of calling the government and reporting, "Hey, this area's got a bunch of trash everywhere," like.
Oh, Nick, you cut out. Hold on, Nick, back up a smidge. You cut out about the trash bag thing.
I cut out?
Yes.
Interesting. I blame our producer for muting me. At any rate, I was in St. Paul, and if you want to make a difference, instead of calling the government and complaining about things, and they may or may not help you out, go buy a thing of trash bags. And I think if you wanted to make a big difference, if you wanted to make the news or whatever, just like paint a small sign that you just kind of have on your back, or like they have the handicap flags on wheelchairs.
Have you seen the hashtag trash tag?
Not.
All right, so it's literally like a thing that's actually starting to get momentum, where people will take a picture of themselves in like a messy area or like under a bridge or wherever there's trash accumulated. They'll do a picture before, they'll clean the whole thing, and have another picture of them after with like it being super clean and like a pile of trash bags in the middle. And it's actually becoming a thing.
That's awesome. Like, that's way better than some ice bucket challenge, even if it is for a medical condition. Like, I'm sorry, like, yes, raise money for medical conditions, but okay, where's the challenge to go pick up a bunch of garbage? But my whole thing would be, I would wear like a flag thing like they have on the handicap chairs, like the little orange flag. I'd wear that, and I'd have a little sign on the top that just says, "Be the difference you want to see in the world." There was a goofy kind of thing that was poking fun initially by the title about religion, and I don't want to go too far into that topic, but it was basically saying how a individual was looking at atheists and saying, atheists should really probably be an inspiration for church people, and they're not picking on church people or atheists in this article, which is what you're led to believe when you see the title, and it turned out to be kind of a beautiful piece. But they sit there and say, as a church person, you drive by someone on the side of the road and you say a quick prayer, and especially our generation, thoughts and prayers with so and so in Haiti, thoughts and prayers and so in the volcano, thoughts and prayers with this, that, and the other damn thing. But then you see someone who's maybe not your religion or maybe not religious, who is just helping another human being. And if that's not inspiration for proof of God in some way, shape, or form, this person's not sending their thoughts and prayers. They're showing up and making a difference to someone who needs help. And in the story, it was an atheist who pulled over to help someone change a flat tire instead of driving by. And it should serve as an inspiration that this person isn't saying, "Oh, this is, God needs to help this person." It's just, no, go be the difference kind of thing. So, all right, I'll get off my pedestal. Someone give us a new sound.
I think that kind of segues into an interesting topic. So you're talking about picking up trash, and you're talking about the hashtag trash bag. What do you say? Like,
I think it's trash tag. Hashtag trash tag.
Okay. Trash tag. Okay. But then that kind of brings up the another interesting topic, and I think Brent would be a really good one to talk to about this. Like, what do you think a good solution is for all of our trash? Like, obviously, like Europe, I know Europe has really taken it upon themselves to really take on the problem of recycling, but I don't know. I drive around and I see all these huge landfills, and all I think is, yeah, maybe that might be a really good sledding hill someday, or a place to go dirt biking. But honestly, it's so bad for the environment. Like, I don't know why we keep, like, how do we solve, like, is there a way to fix this issue of trash? Like, where does it go? Like, what can we do with it?
Well, my initial thought on that would be, like, moving forward, we have to find ways to make things that can be recycled, or things that can decompose, or things like this whole thing of let's do plastics and throw them out, like, has to stop. That kind of thing. Like, the things that we put in the landfill, we just have to stop making those, instead find ways to innovate to make products that are, I mean, they do the same thing, but are either they decompose, or they can come to, break down over time, that are better for the environment. So that would take care of future, try and find ways to reduce that future trash, while also working on ways of finding ways to break down the trash that we've already created. I know there was things with some bacteria that's been found, that it was in the news a while ago, like bacteria that can break down plastics, innovations like that. So think of how can we reduce the trash we already have, and then how can we move forward by reducing the trash that we create, and how can we continue to make stuff that we can reuse, things that we can recycle, things that aren't going to end up. The tough thing that I find is the stuff on the side of the roads, and I feel like it's going to take money to get that stuff.
If I may, the best videos on the internet are when somebody tries to throw litter out of their car, and they're like a motorcyclist or something grabs it and just throws this like whole whatever it is, just ruins the inside of their car by throwing it back inside. Those are some of the best videos on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it's not even people just throwing things off the side of the road. Like I know in Seattle, there's a problem with homelessness, and with that homelessness, they will leave a lot, like they'll camp along the side of the highways, and they'll leave a lot of trash along the side of the highways because there's just nowhere else for them to put it. And a lot of the stuff that they use is things that come in single-use items. So it's one of those big system things that I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. I think a lot of the problems that the Earth is facing, whether it's air pollution, whether it's trash, whether it's homelessness and poverty, or it's, for some reason, it all seems to be connected. And it's really hard to narrow down. Like, I don't think there's just like one, this is the problem, this is it. It's one of those things where if you can reduce one of the things, it could potentially influence the others. Like if you reduce poverty, well, there might not be as much trash on the road, and there might be other, or if you can figure out ways to get things to degrade, maybe
it's a state of mind, and I guess not a movement. It's changing people's minds, right? It's getting everybody on the same page of, hey, this is the goal, this is what's socially acceptable. Like we all have to start working towards this thing for the better of everybody.
But how do you get a whole country to change their perspective?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of already starting. Like in the 70s, 80s, like nobody really cared. I guess 90s, 2000s, and then just recently, like Boulder. If you come here, like literally even McDonald's will have 3 different containers for trash, recyclable, compost. Like even some McDonald's here will have the 3 trash bins to make sure like the entire downtown Boulder, Pearl Street, like almost every single shop or food place there all have the same like takeout containers and like takeout cutlery, because it's all either reusable where they can like be washed, or it's all like the same recyclable, so that way all the stores and all the trash in that area is all going to the same funnels and to the correct funnels to get recycled or put to the compost, and then just minimal as possible going to the landfill.
If I may, you'd be a good person to ask. How much more do you think it would cost a company to basically change out their products from plastics to recycled materials? So I know that some companies have really adopted like paper recyclable straws for their soft drinks. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much does it cost like that much for companies to change over to recyclable materials? To where does it cost so much to where they just can't afford to change over those things?
So I think there's a combination of things. There can be government mandated laws that force people into having better practices. That's kind of what started with the whole factories forcing people, companies to watch how much pollution they're giving out. So like there's government law, and then there's also eventually like if one person really cares about something and they make the switch to paper straws, and then their neighboring company have people losing business because their next door neighbor is doing recycling straws and they're not, so then they switch to recycling straws. recyclable straws. It kind of can expand out, and just by popular demand, if now the demand is for paper straws, people producing paper straws are going to find a way to make them as cheap as possible and as many as possible to fill the need. So it's definitely comes down to supply and demand thing, and if there's enough attitude change or a decision being made, it kind of forces business to conform.
So if I may, I actually really like that point of about having the economic benefit. I think actually taking care of the environment can be a really good opportunity, especially as the movement grows, more people are interested in living that sustainability. What I would like to see in the future, and I think this is going to help solve a lot of these issues, is depoliticizing a lot of these issues. So like climate change is a very political issue, where you have one side that's saying, no, there's no such thing as climate change, and there's another that says it is. And I would like to see those big
there's the
issues
right
that
side
kind
and the
of-
wrong side.
Yeah, I'd like to see it more of a universal, like, there are just certain things in this world that are universal truths that affect the human condition.
Like the earth
Like,
is
for
flat.
example, if our something that's like gonna wipe out humans, for example, we make the earth inhospitable for humans to live, well, that should go beyond like a political I believe this, I don't, and it should go into a let's actually work together, solve this issue, come together and fix this, because there's more at stake than just a little bit of squabbling. And I think that's one of those things where it's like,
I will only participate if we hold hands and sing Kumbaya afterward.
see, that's exactly what we need. I completely agree with that. All right, so all this talk about nature, I want to give a really quick nature news. So it's our segment of the week. Let's go for it.
It's time for
The nature news of the week. All right, so this week we're going up to Alaska. And I saw this-
Alaska. We just talked about
Yep. So we're Dylan is going to hopefully end up someday once he wins the lottery. And right now there's a really big dog sled race, and I just got a kick out of this. It was actually the Iditarod's going on, the really famous, if you've seen the movie Balto, which we all
the
should.
dog race.
The dog, like if you think dog races, it's the Iditarod. And there's I saw this story on ESPN, and I had to share it with you guys. I'm gonna read from it. This is from ESPN. Musher Nicholas Petit lost a huge lead in the Iditarod Trail sled dog race on Monday when his dog team refused to keep going after he yelled at one of the animals.
Teaches him
interesting.
right.
Like the animals just quit on him. The dogs are like, so I guess the dog named Joey was fighting with another dog, and once he was like, stop fighting, and there you go. They were like, we're done running for you. So I thought that was just really funny of like, these animals, you can train them, you can put them through all this work, you're all working towards a common goal, and yet here you go. Sometimes you say one thing out of the line and they have their mind of their own.
So did all the dogs quit on him?
Yeah, it's just they weren't running. And
Well,
I
like a
think
lot of
that's
times
one
those teams, don't they have them
dynamics.
set up where like the front two dogs are like there's like an alpha dog and then the lead dogs, so like pretty much whatever they do, the rest of the dogs do.
Yeah, this is a quote from the Musher. He
Okay.
said, I yelled at Joey and everybody heard the yelling, and that doesn't happen. And then they won't go anywhere, so we camped here. And they were like, it erased a 5-hour lead. Like they literally just stopped, and they just, crazy.
Do they start back
Crazy.
up the next day? Because isn't that like a multi-day thing?
Yeah,
The,
it's like a week-long event.
at least from what last I've heard, the guy was like, well, hopefully if another team comes up to us and passes us, maybe they'll get their like competitive juices flowing or something. I found it really funny. You don't normally see things about animals in ESPN, so it's just like it's crazy.
I
There's
think it's
a-
more interesting that the dogs were communicating enough to the point where they're
Just like, nope.
uniformly deciding to just be like, nope, I'm done running for you.
We're on strike. You're a jerk.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's interesting that they all were working together in that sense.
Right. That
Yeah,
reminds me. Actually, like a couple weeks ago, I was almost going to bring this up, but I had it as a potential queued topic. But there was like I don't know what it's called, but it's like the highest end dog training competition each year. I think it's like in England or something where they have the dogs do the obstacle courses and whatnot. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
they had that competition, and there was like a couple there like there's like I don't know exactly how it works. Apparently, there's like different classes of dogs, but like apparently two things that were like super interesting coming out of that thing is that one of like the top dogs like just gave up halfway through the course and just like ran back to its
done
owner.
with
It was just done, and apparently it was like one of the higher ranking dogs. And then the other one was that like a pug won a certain category that like a pug has never won before, like a certain poundage of dog or whatever. But like a pug won a
Can you
category.
imagine
dog
how much
category.
money was invested in that one dog that just quit? Can you
Right?
imagine the amount of money to just
Yeah.
have the dog just do its own thing? I'm done.
Just- no.
A whole company and whole investment firm is just devastated.
Well, you can tell like the dog's like super nervous or something. Like something was up with the dog before he even started. But yeah, but I don't know.
What are you gonna do though?
I'm proud of that pug for sure, though. Whoa!
Wow.
What was
That's
that?
so Seattle maybe twice a year, from what I can tell, gets a thunderstorm or thunder at all, and we just got a big one, like a really big burst of thunder. That literally never happens.
That was huge.
Wow, that was
awesome.
You still have power. I mean, that's a good sign.
Yeah, there's definitely probably people that don't have power. I guarantee it.
Do you all get earthquakes in Seattle?
Supposedly they're due for a really big one, but not yet. So
Have you,
they
so
do.
you haven't felt one yet?
No, I'm not. I'm nervous for it.
That's
Like,
one
if
of my
it's- if it's-
checklist items is to be
You want to
part
be
of
in a hurricane? Not a hurricane,
no
an earthquake.
an earthquake. Yeah, that's on my checklist of like my to-do list is to I want to take part. I want to feel an earthquake just because I've never felt one before.
If it's really big, I don't want to be like where my building that the apartment collapses. I don't want to live through that.
Yeah,
But I do want to.
You don't
want
want
to
to live through
like when the
that.
ground
You mean you don't want to
shakes.
experience
I
that?
want to live through that. I don't want to experience. I don't want anything. Like when the volcano that's just down the road, the Rainier, like Mount Rainier, erupts. Like that's all right. I don't want to be by that.
If I
Talking
may-
about the national park,
Yeah.
we will all
I
die
may-
if that does.
the people who have way too much money in buying islands and surviving major events. The guy who owns Virgin, like the brand of
Virgin
Mobile.
airline or whatever, Virgin Airlines
Craig?
or whatever.
Craig Virgin.
Oh,
I don't think that's his name.
Makes sense to me. I believe it.
Thought it was like Richard Branson or someone. I don't know.
Oh
Like,
yeah, never mind. That's
famous
not-
name.
Anyhow,
But
Who's Craig Virgin then? Oh, Craig Virgin's a runner. Never mind. Carry
cares
on.
about runners. At
I
any
do.
rate, the guy owned his own island, and it was hit by a hurricane. And instead of evacuating the island, what he decided to do was spend the hurricane locked in his wine cellar with the employees who lived and worked on the island. And if I were to ever I think being in a hurricane would actually be really cool. Like I'd want to make sure the place I was impregnable. Like
did all the employees get
if I
one?
may, did you guys hear of that last hurricane that hit like the Florida area or whatever? They legit, I forgot, they had to make public announcements to tell people to stop shooting bullets into the hurricane. Like people were just shooting guns into the hurricane, and obviously, fast hurricane doesn't really make sure your bullets go straight. So like, there's bullets hitting things in crazy places that it was not expected to have a bullet hit. And yeah, but they had to like make a public service announcement to people to be like, stop shooting bullets into the hurricane.
I thought that's how you killed a hurricane.
That's how you stop it from spinning so fast. You
Yeah,
slow it
that's
down.
show
by
it
putting
who's
bullets
boss.
in the opposite direction.
Florida's the dumbest state in the world, like in the U.S. by far.
At
Maybe
any
in the
rate,
world. Those guys
if I
are
would want
idiots.
to survive an event like a hurricane, which I want to do at some point. I want to be in one or experience part of it, just because I think that'd be really cool, and I like being
Maybe
in
the
a huge-
edge in like a category 1, whatever the smallest one is.
Hey, this is
whatever, yeah.
Nick's hurricane dream. Let him dream big.
If I were to do it, I would totally want to do it in a wine cellar. They describe it in the article like it's like a
Where's the
train-
rum gone?
They describe it in the article like a train was going by for 36 hours. Wind. and they were locked in the wine cellar. And of course, they partook a little bit, which would be where I had fun, but or would have fun. But
If I may, the owner of Virgin Group, is Richard Branson. Now that might not sound familiar, but if you look it up and you like see his face, you'd be like, "Oh, that guy." He's like
He's also the space.
one of
He's
the
not
more, like,
SpaceX. He's the
no, that's
That's
Elon
Tesla.
Musk.
no,
but,
but he has his own rocket thing. What was it?
Richard-
Space Shuttle
Richard-
1 or something like that. Spaceship 1. That was him. Pretty sure.
He was on Shark Tank. I saw that episode.
Dude, there's a
apparently went to space.
yeah. I think it was on his Spaceship 1 or whatever.
Oh, it's Virgin Galactic.
Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, he's the one that's trying to set up like tours into space for rich people.
So is he trying to compete with SpaceX or anything like that, or is he just?
I think SpaceX is going more towards the commercial side of things. Like maybe sometime in the future they'll go travelers, but right now they're looking a little bit more practical because they are still like a smaller agency. They're taking calculated risks, we'll call it. So that they're working on the newest crew capsule to the ISS for the United States. So like that'll be a pretty good influx of constant money for them, and because it's also way cheaper to launch one of their rockets than the space shuttle ever was, or even the Apollo or Gemini missions. But then they also have been using their Falcon 9s to deliver goods to the International Space Station, as well as like satellites into orbit and that kind of thing. So
Have
they're
you
more
been
on the commercial side.
Have you been following their launches? I think it's so like satisfying to watch their launches, especially the landings. I think it's like, and they just had one crash too, not too long ago, which was really interesting too.
So there's
but-
there's the one famous semi-recent launch where they launched the Tesla car into space. Like if you have some time, you got to go watch that launch. Like not many things make me like cry per se, like a movie, like, but like success stuff, like the football team winning or whatever, like, you know, where somebody's trying really hard and they finally get, like Karate Kid, you know, it gets me right in the feels. And when those rockets simultaneously landed
That's what I'm
automatically
talking
on
about.
their own, like I was
satisfying.
feeling it. I was feeling it a little bit. I'm like, that's some
Yeah, that was amazing.
that's some awesome engineering right there. Like that is sexy.
Yeah, so I think SpaceX is gearing more towards like exploration, see what we can see, do what you think we can do, and it looks like Richard
So if I may, real
Virgin
quick,
Galactic.
that's their public message. Their actual missions are much more commercial, with the whole satellite delivering goods to the ISS and going
Yeah.
for people into the ISS.
But it looks like Richard Branson with his Virgin Galactic, it looks like his whole company is focusing on tourism. He wants to fly people to space and back. And it looks like he's built almost like a kind of like what we see in Kerbal Space Program, where you kind of build a half
Great game.
plane, half rocket. Yeah, it's a great game. But you know how we used to build the half plane, half rockets?
A shuttle,
Well,
you might
that's-
say.
Yeah, but that flies like a plane, and then you hit your boosters to go up into the upper atmosphere. That kind of looks like the craft that he's building and working on right now.
Yeah, they're working on like a 2 lanes of people. Yeah, they're doing some cool stuff. They haven't done anything
Yeah, that'll
significant
be really interesting.
in a bit, but they're definitely promising. I guess with the whole space talk, like if there's one conspiracy theory that I believe in, it's that there's aliens out there somewhere. Have they visited Earth previously? I'm less, I don't think so much about that. Like I don't think that's the way it is, but there's definitely life out there somewhere. Well, I guess
I
are there other
Conspiracy theory?
what?
There's no way that's a conspiracy theory. That's gotta be like fact. There's just too much of a possibility and probability that there's not alien. Granted, that means maybe I believe in the conspiracy theory.
Nick,
Maybe
do
it
you
is a
believe in
conspiracy
aliens?
theory.
what's the question?
What's
Do
your
you believe
alien
in
take?
aliens?
Is there aliens?
Oh, in some way, shape, or form, there is definitely something. I guess if I'm having this conversation in its fullest form, I would go down the religion aspect and kind of talk about the creation of life. My personal belief is we are not in God's image. We are we are broken. We are a form of life, and there are many forms of life in an infinite universe, and that my brain can't comprehend, very simply. And to assume we are the only intelligent life or life period would be an astronomically huge mistake. But our world is not yet ready to comprehend that. We continue to gain intelligence and become, which is gaining intelligence, as we continue to grow as a species, as we continue to expand, our knowledge has started to increase. What's the mathematical term?
I think it's something like every 20 years, the amount of information that humanity knows has doubled.
Right, and it's the curve. What's the math term for the
Exponential curve.
Exponential. Thank you. Our growth will continue to eventually, and as that occurs, as the older generations die or whatever it takes, certain things will be more or less accepted. I think religion is great. It has a place in the world, but I think it is something that will die in time. Now, not my lifetime, maybe not my grandchildren's lifetimes, if I'm lucky enough to have any, maybe not in 12 generations, but eventually it will need to change. And because I love to have debates and discussions about religion and what the real meaning is, and I love to get into the history of the Catholic Church. Is always the easy one, although Islam's just as bad. But
I think we, Nick, if I may, I think we shy away from religion unless we're going to dedicate a whole episode to it. Like, I don't think we have time to rebut anything or talk about anything religion-wise.
That's a
all right. So if I may, I started listening to a really nice, really, really good podcast called Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, and he talks about, in this case, World War I. And part of that, what he was talking about was there's a certain point in all like civil intelligent species where they can get to a level, or if they advance technologically far enough, that they can get to a level where they can destroy themselves. So like for Earth, for example, people think that 1945 with the atomic bombs, humans have gotten to that level of technology where we could, if we really wanted to, wipe out the entire species and actually most of the life on Earth.
Yeah, between the U.S. and Russia, we can... I forgot what the stat was, but between U.S. and Russia, we can obliterate the entire face of the Earth 7 times over, or something like that.
Yeah, something ridiculous. And one of the thoughts was he brought up the Fermi paradox, which is that there's so many planets on Earth, like I mentioned before, or like there's so many, like the galaxies are insane. There's like millions of possible stars that could host Earth or like life, but that yet we haven't found aliens. Like something doesn't line up. Like there's such a high probability that there's got to be some sort of life, but then we haven't found anything. And one of the things he mentioned as possible solution to this Fermi principle is that maybe these intelligent lives have gotten to the point where they could destroy themselves, and then they have, and that maybe it's really hard to not make everything just go really poorly, and that's why, like,
what's the reason we're not more actively pursuing life on other planets or life throughout the universe?
Yeah,
it's just not a priority. We haven't evolved to the point where
it's a necessity.
It's the number one thing that we're trying to do, or it's the right thing. We're too caught up in making money. We're too caught up in who's right in the God's
Yeah, if I may, the whole space race with Russians was primarily us trying to bankrupt each other.
Yeah, it's a bad joke. There's too many other things. And yeah, it could be they killed themselves, or they're still caught up in internal conflict the same way we are. Why are we not supporting Elon Musk and who's the black scientist who's goddamn brilliant and on every
Neil
show?
deGrasse Tyson.
Yep.
I started reading one of his books.
Why are we not supporting these people with every dollar that is in existence? Like whatever they think we should do, we should probably just do it.
the reason that we don't give them money is because for me, a Tesla's too expensive at the moment.
Right. I get it.
That's
But,
the only,
but okay,
only reason.
not come together as a planet, like go full Star Trek on you. Why do we not come together as a planet, eliminate the financial systems, make sure we have enough food and everything else to keep each other alive and provide for necessities, and then go explore the universe?
If I may,
Humans
I
are
forgot
selfish.
exactly what the reason was called. It was something that my equal rights professor ingrained into our memory, and it started with an H. It was something to the effect of those who in power want to stay in power, and that's the reason why we haven't combined and gotten rid of money, is because those in power want to stay in power.
I get it.
If I may, can say everyone solve their issues and we work together as a planet, would we even still be able to afford the resources and to be able to build something to like go off and search other places in space? Like, would we even have the resources to build something like
For
that?
sure. Like if the entire world band together for one purpose, we would be able to get a good portion of the or a good chunk of people off the planet to go somewhere.
Gets really technical really fast though, because it's a matter of, okay, if we are managing our species the way it maybe ought to be managed, you have to ask some real tough questions that are not emotional questions. They're logical, but people won't like the answers. How many kids can everyone have? How much food does everyone get? How much vacation time do you get?
If I may, would that be easier to manage if humans weren't the ones managing it and a computer did?
The AI is going to take over the world.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, but if a computer does it, well, it gets really dark.
It gets really dark or really complicated really fast, because the incentive to be the person in power is you get to make the decisions. You still get to do everything you want, and everyone else has to play by your rules. And everyone agrees to play by those rules because it's better than the alternative, which is chaos. There was a great philosophy class I took in college, and I'm not that guy who's like, oh, just the philosophy, this, that, the other thing. But it talks about the Leviathan, the social structure that builds up our society and how it works. It has some great material. I don't pretend to remember all of it, but it kind of touches on some of those subjects, and it's really cool.
Well, I think this episode can be dedicated to Earth then, because we talked about a bunch of things about the planet and whatnot. This episode dedicated to the Earth.
Yeah, we got deep. I like it.
Dylan,
I got real
you did
deep.
the intro. You wanna wrap us up?
I can do that. Is there any music with it? I don't think
No,
so.
there's no
All right.
music.
All right. That was episode 39 of If I May. I hope you all enjoyed bringing you a new episode every Thursday. Support us, merch available, subscribe, share, rate, and review. If you want to get in contact with us, Kyle, I don't know. What I can do.
It's not really fair that you've never pre-read this and you're literally trying to read it on the spot. It's more
if you want to get it,
it's more of a bullet point list
to
rather
be
than
fair,
sentences.
If I may, real quick, this was changed, I believe, mid-episode. So
Yeah.
potentially not
Alright.
edited either. All right, go ahead.
if you want to get in contact with us and give ideas or for topics you want to hear in future episodes, DM us on Twitter at Zarabust or email zarabust@gmail.com.
That's hard to say, ain't it?
Have Zarubust
All the ats in there.
at gmail.com. Yeah, it is. That's all right. We'll figure it out. Have a great Thursday, and we will see you next week.